This is the Leaders Rising podcast, creating bigger futures, building thriving cultures. We believe you can become a leader worth following. All right, Jeff, kicking off most conversations that you and I have. How's the weather in Madison today?
This is the kind of day where people want to move to Wisconsin. It's glorious outside, and up until hitting record here, I had the windows open, a nice breeze, but I was afraid somebody would start mowing nearby. So
my wife and I went to the gymnastics gym last night to pick up our youngest, and we're walking out. We walk out the door of the gym, headed to the car, and I'm like, man, it just feels so nice here right now. And she's like, you mean cold? I'm like, no, nice.
That's great.
The humidity was low. It was a perfect night to be.
I was trying to figure out how to do this recording on my back patio, but it wasn't working out. So
no, I haven't figured out. The birds are too loud, and actually the birds are getting into the squirrels are getting into my bird feeder here lately. So the squirrels
maybe
are
we
too
could just
loud.
I think people wouldn't mind hearing birds on the podcast.
Yeah,
let us know in the comments. Yeah.
We'll do that sometime. All right. So, hey, Jeff, don't you do some leadership things? Can you come do our leadership retreat?
Oh, you've heard about me. Hey, that's great. I'm glad we follow each other on LinkedIn.
Have you ever heard that question before?
I've heard that one before. Let me ask you a question back on that. Tell me about the last annual retreat you guys did.
That was a while ago. Was that the one we talked about the color book or the animals book?
Yeah, that's usually what happens, right? We don't even remember the last annual retreat because it was a one and done thing. It was something that somebody had been inspired by or found helpful. Maybe it was even really meaningful at the time. But the trick of those annual meetings is that if they are just a one and done thing, they give you some helpful information, but they don't lead to lasting transformation. And I think we can do better. What do you think, Aaron?
We can definitely do better. Yeah. I won't go into too many details because we want to be encouraging and motivating here on the podcast. But I have one of my former students went through a new manager training program that was almost the opposite of that inspirational once a year, but it was still the one and done. So it was all about, this one was probably less inspirational, more on information. But at the end of the syllabus, congratulations, you've got a certificate. Congratulations, you are a manager.
Yeah.
And it just seems like what's out there, there's lots of great ingredients. I think we're missing some of the connective tissue that makes it truly impactful and really land and help us to be the best of who we are and reach our true potential.
I love that. Yeah, I started my career in the age of leadership conferences, right? And I have all the t-shirts and probably boxes of binders in my basement with all the information that I was inspired by. And I was sure I was going to come home and be a better leader. I probably was better in some ways because I had been inspired and had some helpful new tips and tricks. But it really wasn't until much later when some people slowed down and walked alongside me to help, level up my transformation. In fact, I had experienced a lot of success in my leadership, but I had a mentor who came to me and said, what if the next mountain you need to climb isn't out there somewhere, but what if it's in here? And that really did change my leadership journey as I began to experience some transformation for myself, grow my own self-awareness, understand what it's like to be on the other side of me. That's the kind of stuff that will make a difference at your next leadership retreat if it starts a new journey for people.
Yeah. And so think about the world we've been in, the world of organizations and leadership. And if we don't have that kind of hope and we're trying to thrive or even survive on the once a year inspiration to get us through, I mean, what does that look like every day? Just think through some of the leaders you've talked to here lately. What's their actual day-to-day like? What are they sitting in? What are they struggling with that's keeping them from really reaching their potential?
The people we work with all the time are people leaders. They are responsible at the highest level of organizations, whether that's a Fortune 500 company or a Main Street business or a large nonprofit. Like they're the ones carrying the weight of the organization. And I think if we could read all of their journals, I bet we would find a line in there somewhere where they all said, I feel like I'm the one holding it all together, right? And they wish somebody else could help carry the weight. I think that's just a common leadership feeling, and we wonder if we can say that out loud anywhere, because part of that is we're just a victim of our own success, right? As we have accomplished more, as we've taken on more responsibility, we've maybe been good at moving things forward. We've been high performers. And now all of a sudden you are leading at the highest level you've ever led at before. And no one actually showed you how to do this. You're probably an expert at your industry or your lane, but maybe nobody's showed you how to do the people development side of things. And so you may even have that impulse. I wish somebody could help me with it, but you're not sure what to do next.
Well, let's see if we can be at least a little bit helpful, point people towards a framework, a visual, a solution, a path that they can embark on. What's the root cause of this issue? Like really at the root, what are we trying to solve here that's keeping us from really making a difference?
I do think, if in an ideal world, I'd love to just sit across from whoever's listening on the other side of this, right? Let's grab your favorite drink. Let's find a beautiful day like it is today and sit down and tell me about the real challenges that you're facing and who else is on your team. And you probably, if you're a leader, you care about your people, you care about your organization, you want to see things moving forward. And maybe all you can do is reach back into like the last thing that was helpful to me, right? Was this inspiring book I read, or I saw this video online that I want to share at our next team meeting. And again, all those things can be helpful. They are inspirational, but they can actually ultimately lead to greater frustration for our people because it's here was that one-off idea and it's not connected to the next one-off idea. And even though it's a helpful idea, we're not creating a system that gives a pathway for our people to grow and to develop and to actually hand off responsibility to them. Maybe occasionally we throw a task in their direction, but task handing off is different than team development.
Yeah, there's so many times it hasn't been a handoff for me. It's been just chuck it over the 6-foot brick wall.
Yeah.
I don't even make eye contact with some of the people in these handoffs. And that's happened time and time again for me in my career. And I've seen it happen time and time again. And it feels like it really comes down to a time issue. We just don't feel like we have enough time because part of what you're describing means we have to go slower. And who really wants to go slower in this AI world? We're just going faster. So how do we reconcile that?
I do often say when I'm sitting across from a senior leader who's responsible for the organization, I say one of the painful realities I'm going to let you in on is that part of my job, at least for a little while, is to slow you down. And I know that's painful. And I know that's what nobody wants to do, but it's so that we can speed you up over time. Let's slow down, make sure we're heading. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. And let's say my goal is to get to Chicago, Illinois, but I'm going 100 miles an hour towards Minneapolis, Minnesota. Like 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction is taking you further away from where you want to go. So what if we slow you down for a moment? Let's get out the map. Let's decide where it is we're trying to get to, and let's reorient and start moving in the right direction. So it's that kind of slowing down that we're inviting people to do. We're not trying to say, stop doing what you're doing. We're saying, let's make sure we're heading in the right direction, that we're in the right vehicle, that the right people are coming along for the ride, and let's get the right map in place.
Well, and I think so often we put all of our energy and resources into that one time, once a year retreat or workshop. We get everybody the book, we send everybody or as many people as we can to a conference and try to excite everybody. But you mentioned this, putting all of those notebooks on the shelf, so seldom do we actually take the time to put that into action and figure out, hey, what's my game plan around this?
Yeah, those things they're great for the moment, but they are not great for momentum. Right? They're not going to carry things forward for you. So creating a sustainable rhythm of development, a sustainable rhythm of, a people system. Where do we show up consistently to help our people, elevate throughout our organization? So many senior leaders, we become the bottleneck because we carry so much of the weight and responsibility, and we haven't figured out how to get it out of our head and back into our people. We haven't taught people, here's how I make the decisions that I make, and so they have to come to you to make the decisions. And there's a process. There's a repeatable process that we help organizations implement over and over again, but it doesn't come naturally to most of us.
You've got a story, and it's one of my favorite stories you tell, that started with the question we kicked off the episode with. Hey, can you do our retreat for us? Yeah. Can you walk us through what that client ultimately discovered along that journey?
Yeah, this is a great company. They've done a lot of great things. They make products that you've heard of. You probably have some in your house right now, and um, and a new senior leader who really wants to help them continue to grow and excel as an industry leader. And we had gotten connected online somehow. I'm not even sure I remember the thing. And they had an upcoming, like his next thing he was responsible for was their annual senior leader retreat. And so it's where they do all their strategic planning. It's a multi-day thing. He's like, hey, could you guys come for a day and help our leaders be better? And it was that same question. Can you do our annual leadership retreat? And our answer is like, sure, of course we can. We'd be glad to help you out. But again, tell me about the last leadership retreat. And he's like, I don't even remember what we did. I'm sure we read a book and we sat around and talked about it and somebody helped us do the thing. I'm like, yeah, precisely. Again, we'd love to help you for that day, but that's never enough. Let's talk about the next 6 months and what we want to accomplish. And again, we begin to draw the map and paint a picture of what if 3 years from now, your culture was, and your leaders were healthier? What if everybody had a common playbook that they could draw from? What if everybody was speaking the same language? What if trust was at an all-time high? What if everybody knew who was next up in the leadership pipeline, which was not a thing that existed at all in this organization? And so just beginning to dream beyond the event into what kind of momentum do we want to build over time. And then, that gets exciting, but then immediately reality sets in, right? Like, I don't think we have time for that is a common thing, because this is a high performing, organization. They've got numbers to meet and all the kind of things. And so we just talked a little bit about like, well, you're already doing stuff. Like your team has regular rhythms already. Tell me about those. And then let's okay, so he tells me about the regular things. Well, what if we could infuse some of those things with some new intentionality, right? What if it wasn't just going over this project was that, and this person's working on that, but let's bring some new intentionality around it. How much of that time would it be worth carving out to gain momentum on those things we just talked about? And there was a number that came to mind, like, oh, we could give this many hours a month to that. Another organization we did it with was we could go every other week. Another organization was we could do this every 3 months. Whatever the thing is. Okay, let's take what you're already doing. We're not trying to carve out a bunch of new time. Let's infuse what you're already doing with new meaning. Start to think long term. That's where it feels like we're slowing people down, but I hope you can already see like there's momentum, there's energy around it, and things begin to change.
My favorite part of that story, and I'm just going to clarify because I think you were pretty nice in how you described this go round.
Okay, maybe I was.
He said, "Can you do the retreat?" And you said no.
Okay, yeah, we did say no. We said we don't do annual retreats.
It's funny, but it's true. And I think the thing that our team loves to do is put the solution out there, help an organization see, here's the roadmap you could possibly pursue, and lay that out. We're not trying to shy away from telling you no if it's a bad idea.
I think that's true. You know, this is a senior C-suite leader who was responsible for this, and most C-suite leaders have a plan in mind, right? Like that's their job is we've got to have a plan for this, and so their plan was an annual retreat. Um, and he did say, "Hey, can you do our annual retreat?" I think my initial response was no, and which just more like got him off balance a little bit to think about something different. I did come back around and say, yeah, we could do your annual retreat. We'd be glad to. But here's why I said no. We don't want to settle for a one-off event. One-off events are good for information. They're not going to create the lasting transformation, and your investment's worth more than that.
Information, inspiration versus transformation. I think that sums it up right there.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there. We're in information overload.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are creating
Ask
a podcast.
ChatGPT,
which is
anything you want, right?
Yeah. And here's a podcast with some more information. But
Right.
we hope this is going to lead to transformation, because where we're headed is on this Leaders Rising podcast. We want to give resources, insights, prompt next steps to make sure that we're spurring people on towards action. And I think action is the key. That, again, back to the notebooks. If we aren't taking action on the information, then where are we actually going? Can you dig in a little bit? Information, inspiration. Yeah, we get that. But what does transformation look like?
All right. Well, I'm an 80s kid, and one of my favorite toys in the 80s was Transformers, right? So, a Transformer, the cool thing about it is it's one thing and then it becomes another thing. It's way more powerful and cool, right? That's really what we're talking about here. You've got every organization has a culture. You have people who are leading by intention, by default, by promotion. And we think there's a better way. What if you actually developed your leaders intentionally? What if you helped your high performers grow their self-awareness, be able to answer the question, what's it like to be on the other side of you? Be able to help others, that they're not just climbing to the top of the mountain themselves, but they're ready to go back down and help others climb as well. That's the kind of transformation that we're talking about. A culture that isn't just in the way, but a culture that's really intentionally helping you guys become all that you want it to be.
I think that's a great way to frame this up, to think about how can we become more, because really deep down we can become more. We can do more with our time. It just takes a slight tweak or adjustment in how we think about the regular rhythms. Like you said, the meetings we already have, we might just need to shift. How do we move this from an informational meeting to a transformational meeting? There's small adjustments we can make. We don't need to do a wholesale complete change and turn the entire cruise ship. What's a way that you would point leaders to start filtering how they can turn those everyday activities, the everyday tasks even that they have, from information or inspiration into transforming their own leadership, their team, their productivity, all the way around?
Yeah, if you're a people leader and you're listening to this episode, one of my favorite compliments I ever received from a client was after this next exercise that I'm about to share with you. He said, "Oh, I think you should be our chief clarity officer," right? Because it's about just helping people get clear on what's happening and what to do next. And here's a really simple exercise that you can start with. We'll share this in the show notes as well, but it's simply starting with a time audit. And here's what we mean by that. Literally this week, just write down everything that comes across your plate. I went to this meeting for this long. I made these decisions for these people. I had to, have this hard conversation. Everything that comes your way, just keep track of it in whatever way works for you. And that can be a mental list. You might be surprised if you just keep a notebook nearby and have a whole list to look at the end of the week. And then I want to just invite you to start cataloging that. If you had 4 different categories, take everything there and put it into one of these 4 categories. The first thing is stuff you should be doing. There's stuff on that list that only you can do for your organization. Here's the the catch though. Not everything on this list is something you should be doing for your organization. In fact, you're probably doing more than you should be. So there's a couple other categories. The next one would be delegate. Is there stuff on this that somebody else in your organization already knows how to do, but you've just become the default go-to person for it? And so, okay, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to delegate this task from now on. Now, there's some other things on this list that maybe nobody else in your organization yet knows how to do it. Maybe there's hiring decisions that need to be made and they keep coming to you, but perhaps you could develop somebody else to understand, here's what we're looking for in our people. Here are the value choices that they need to be able to make. Here are the skill sets that they need to possess. What could you develop in someone else to be able to hand it off to them? Again, that's one of those places where you may have to slow down for a short period of time, but in the long run is going to get you where you want to go. And then finally, I would guess for any one of us that does this exercise, you may not be surprised to find that there are things on this list that you should just drop. Why am I doing that? Why did I spend time doing this thing or that thing? I could just drop that. So doing, delegating, developing, and dropping. There's a resource that might help you get started. And those things that are underdeveloped, we can begin to build a plan for how to develop others as well.
Well, and that's so incredible to think about the transformation that can happen from an individual when they are developed by the person who's leading them.
Yeah.
There was a coachee I had at one point, somebody I was coaching, who really struggled with that idea of handing something off and that still being a win for this person. Mm-hmm. He just couldn't see how that would benefit him in the eyes of his leadership. And so he just kept doing it all. And that was truly to his own ultimate demise. He just could never see that clearly. And it's such a great opportunity. There is one other layer to this, I think, when you think about energy. So it's not just what we're good at, but add in the layer of what energizes you. That may help you discern, hey, I should stop doing this because somebody else has a gift. They're skilled. They're really good at this and they love doing it. I hate it. Maybe you don't have to do that thing.
Yeah. And again, to your point earlier, not just dumping that on somebody else, but really developing them, elevating people, not just, here you go. Here's a task for you.
As you look at leaders you've worked with, organizations, companies you've encountered, where do most leaders unintentionally get stuck when they try to start multiplying and building these multiplication cultures in their organizations?
I think leaders get stuck in a couple of places. One is they confuse delegating with developing, right? And we just talked about that a little bit, but delegation says, here, take this task and get it done. I don't want to be responsible for it anymore. Multiplication says, I see good things in you and I want to develop you. I want to help you climb higher. So I'm equipping you. I'm elevating you. And I think even in the tone of my voice, you can hear the difference in those things, right? Handing off responsibility to high performers is different than developing them into leaders. We can't just dump and run. We really do have to slow down, walk alongside, let people make mistakes, teach them how we make decisions, and develop them. So that's one way they get stuck. I'd say another quick thought is leaders get stuck because they stay in hero mode too long. We think we are more indispensable than we are. We think that we're the one holding everything together. And I'm saying we because I've totally been this person. And we become the go-to person for everything, for every decision. And we fail to actually teach people how to think, how to make decisions, how to care for the values that we value as a company. But the only way we grow as a company, as a team, is to teach people to do what we do. So don't have to be the hero.
You and I were just on a call. We were bringing our navigator team together around one of our clients, and they're in that messy middle related to delegating versus developing. And as they're growing, and I say the messy middle because it really is it's a dance.
It's messy. It's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. They can't just run into it. They can't throw everything over the wall. There's a back and forth and a give and a take that happens for them to do this intentionally, for them to do this well, and for them to truly build a culture where everybody's able to bring their best. As we kicked off, the weight is so often on a leader's shoulders where they're holding so much, they may not even realize how much they're holding. And when that's our approach, sometimes we feel like there's an ejector seat to just let's pop out of the plane and hand this off really fast to somebody.
Yeah.
But that's not going to do anybody any good.
Yeah. And this is a conversation we could carry on in a future episode, but really it's where our own self-preservation kicks in, right? Like, if I hand off responsibility, like, am I giving away my job? Am I, do I have something to lose here? Or, what if they don't need me anymore? All those kind of things start to kick in, right? We want to make sure we stay valuable. So we try to be the hero, but the heroic thing to do in any organization is to lift others up with you.
Jeff, I want to wrap with this question. This is our hot seat wrap-up question.
All right.
The question will be different for every one of our guests on the show, but the point is the same. Just like we talked about the leadership conferences, we went to the conference, we got the notes and the notebooks. What did we ever do with that? Mm-hmm. You and I, our team, we're biased towards action and actually doing something. So here's a hot seat question for you. What's one bold step a leader could take this week or this month to intentionally multiply their leadership across their team?
One bold step: hand over the mic. Don't drop the mic on them, but hand over the mic. And here's what I mean. Pick one meaningful thing that's coming up that's on your agenda. It's a meeting, an initiative, a project, and normally you'd be the person in charge, and let somebody else lead it. Not as a test, not as a favor, but because you want to develop them. Then you're going to give them your support ahead of time. You're going to help them ask the right questions, know what to consider and think about ahead of time, but then publicly hand them the responsibility. Hey, we have high expectations around here, but I'm confident this person is ready for this and they can do it. And so she's going to take the lead on this next project. And then you hand them the mic and you get out of the way.
Hand over the mic. Don't drop the mic. Also, don't throw the mic at them. But right. Hand it over that's a really good invitation. And I know I'm so appreciative for the people in my career, in my life, who handed a mic over to me. The drywall guy who was here at our house repairing some cracks earlier, he was sharing his gratitude for the people who handed that skill over to him, handed him the mic when he was like 13 years old. And I think that's the apprenticeship in construction is a model that all of the rest of us need to take more seriously.
Yeah. We love to say that we create bigger futures, right? And we know that your future is in your people. And so you're not going to build a future ready team or organization by hoarding the mic. So invest in people, invite them to the mic, and invite them to lead.
All right, Jeff, we did it. Episode 1 is a wrap. It's in the books. Hopefully it's not the last one. I'm pretty sure actually it's not the last one because we've got a pretty good roadmap of where we're headed. Some exciting guests with our next few episodes and throughout. So I'm looking forward to this journey. Thanks for the conversation today and
Great
for
to be together.
Diving into this. Yeah. Anything we mentioned, resources, links, all that will be on our website in the Learning Center at leadersrisingnetwork.com. Follow us along, subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you for episode 2. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Leaders Rising Network podcast. Connect with us on LinkedIn or visit online at leadersrisingnetwork.com.